You know, right now we've all learned that Miss USA tragically transitioned. And we can focus on that. But we ought to focus on the lessons to take out of this. And there's a lot. Specifically, mental health. We know across the board in Western nations, mental health is really lacking. Finally, just now, recently, due to COVID, in large part, we can all now accept the fact that mental health is real. Again, it's one of those moments where people are looking at things now and not pre-COVID. Prior to coronavirus, you had rampant mental health issues amongst the American population. And very, very few resources available to meet the much needed demand. Now we all know that mental health is a spectrum. And Cheslie, she was said to be a high functioner in depression. But there's a lot of people that suffer from depression and other mental health issues outside of depression that due to lack of resources suffer and don't get the treatment and help that they need. It's about priorities. This is why Cheslie was so much in favor of Black Lives Matter. Because it was about priorities. You have cities that have chosen to prioritize over budgeting for police departments in pretty much every major city. And very, very few resources for mental health. So then when you hear about a police-involved shooting or crime happening in your community, you know it's due to, in large part, to mental health, a lack of resources for unhoused individuals. You know in large part that's what it's due to. But yet never there's no more allocation of resources to meet the increasing demand. That's one lesson we can take out of this. That Cheslie was for mental health services. She was an advocate. She believed in that. And we ought to honor that legacy. Another lesson we can take out of this is rest. You know, besides all of the noble and great accomplishments, from graduating law school, to being Miss USA, to being an accomplished lawyer, to being an entertainment reporter, besides all of those accomplishments, something that's overlooked that we should really grab onto there was a trend that Cheslie started, was a sabbatical. She took a sabbatical in order to try out for Miss USA. All the research is now coming in stating that people who work in high-level professions need at least a week, possibly 2 weeks off every 3 months. This is what the research is showing. We're overworked. We're overproducing. This is why Gen Z, the research has come out, Gen Z says this year, 65% of Gen Zers are saying this year they're going to leave their job. This is why. This is why you have a shortage of teachers. This is why you have a shortage of fast food workers and retail workers. This is why you have a shortage everywhere. It's called burnout. Cheslie highlighted this to the whole nation. This is now a front center kitchen table issue. It has been for a while. No other group in America is more burned out than essential workers. And you know who the essential workers were. Largely women of color. Now you think, well, Cheslie was affluent. She lived in New York City in an expensive high-rise apartment. But you have to work constantly for that. You have to constantly be going. And what about women of color who are in Jack in the Box at 2 a.m., McDonald's at midnight, making your meals? What about the maid who's coming to your house at 6 in the morning? These women of color are overworked. They're underpaid. They're taxed too heavily. I made a video a while back stating that indigenous and black women shouldn't have to pay income tax for the rest of their life in this country. Knowing the history of what this country, what white supremacy did to black women, no black woman or indigenous woman should have to pay taxes. I would abolish that immediately. Beyond that, though, people who were deemed essential, they were too essential to stop working. They haven't had a vacation. They haven't had time to rest and relax. They've been going and going and going like the Energizer Bunny. Cheslie highlighted this. That's the lesson. That's the takeaway. That we need to slow down and process. Rest is the best form of resistance. To relax and unwind. You know, Gen Z gets it. They get it. They know that capitalism will burn you out. They'll tell you, work 8 hours, Monday through Sunday. Oh, can you work another shift? Somebody called out. And then you'll have customers come in, insult you, curse you out, throw things at you. You saw what happened at the smoothie shop. where Ian threw the smoothie at the 16-year-old, 17-year-old was working there? Do you really think Gen Z is going to go for that type of behavior? Making poverty wages, not being able to afford a house, working under those conditions. No. Cheslie sent a message to the youth to rest. And that's what we should be, to honor. It's Black History Month. Black First Story Month. Black Their, They, Them Story Month. I would say my recommendation would be 2 weeks, the final 2 weeks of February. No person who identifies as being African American should work. You should just take a sabbatical, a respite. You think about it. From the inception of this country, African Americans have been under attack. Slavery, segregation and Jim Crow, the Ku Klux Klan, Bull Connor, redlining, blockbusting. Black women are 3 to 5 times more likely to die in childbirth. You have crumbling schools, a lack of resources, rampant poverty, rampant environmental racism, rampant health issues. Cheslie probably was sending a message. It's time to rest. It's time to take a sabbatical. It's time to do a little blackout. Something for you. You are essential. You're still essential. But even essential people need to rest. Large companies know this. They do pay family leave. But you essential workers, you don't get that. Well, it's time to give it to yourself. You just tell your employer the final 2 weeks of February for Black Person's History, their story month. You're taking a blackout. 2 weeks off. You have no idea. Even the Energizer needs to recharge its batteries. 2 weeks off. You can do a lot. You can really sit back and reflect and think and unwind. Rest is the best resistance. And you heard it here first. Cheslie would have wanted everybody to rest. She was an advocate for mental health. She was an advocate for resistance. And her comrade is resting in peace. You know, Cheslie will live on in everything. Art survives everything. you gotta think, if her final message was about resting, and she was an advocate for her community, then she told you what to do. Now you just gotta follow through.